Right, welcome to Reality Check. Tonight, the confusion and controversy has deepened over the visit of the European Union MPs to India to meet the Prime Minister and visit Kashmir. NDTV had reported that the visit was supposedly organized by Madhi Sharma, an Indian origin British citizen who claims to be a businesswoman and working for a women's rights group who was sending invites directly at the behest of the Prime Minister. Sharma had introduced herself as the founder of WEST, Women's Economic and Social Think Tank, a group that she says has been working with governments on the empowerment of women. So what was WEST doing, taking European MPs to an under-lockdown Kashmir or introducing them to the PM of India? WEST, which appears on a list of EU lobbying groups, say they do political lobbying but do not do it for commercial gain, only for issues of women's development. But just as with Kashmir, Madhi Sharma and WEST appear to be routinely involved with the visits of EU functionaries to other South Asian countries for hardcore political assessments and visits, far removed from women's issues. This has landed WEST in controversy on at least one occasion. In this email uploaded on the European Union site that you're seeing on the screen, a member of WEST writes to a Czech lawmaker in July last year. Madhi Sharma is CC'd on that mail. The mail asks if the lawmaker would like to visit Maldives to assess what the mail describes as a deteriorating situation just ahead of Maldives' presidential elections. That visit, which appears to have taken place in August of last year, has sparked controversy. The Maldivian ambassador to the European Union wrote to the President of the European Parliament complaining that Sharma and the others masqueraded as official visitors and conducted their investigation in violation of Maldives law while being on a tourist visa. The EU had to respond, saying that the visit was entirely private. But that didn't prevent Sharma from being part of leading another group from the European Union, this time to Bangladesh in November last year, which resulted in a glowing piece on the Sheikh Hasina government, calling it the rising tiger of South Asia. And of course, almost a year later, she is in India with a delegation of EU MPs. The question is, if WEST is a non-profit, who is authorizing and paying for these high-ranking visits? In her email on the India visit, Sharma said the costs of the India visit are being borne by a Delhi-based NGO, the think tank, the Institute of Non-Aligned Studies. We paid them a visit yesterday and were asked to come back today. And when we did, we found they had locked up and left.
Yesterday, NDTV had reported about this International Institute for Non-Aligned Studies, which according to Madhi Sharma, actually funded the trip of the European MPs to Kashmir. In fact, when we had come to this office yesterday evening, people present here, they told us that office is closed on account of Baiduj holiday and the person of contact, Sujoy Dhawan, will be available tomorrow, and they had asked us to come today. When we came in the morning today, what we are seeing is a big log at the gate, and the security guard present here, he just told us that office is closed for at least a week. Yesterday we didn't see any log. In fact, there were people around here, but today everything is closed and there is a big log at the gate, and no one is speaking, no one is responding to our calls too.
Okay, now it's worth bearing in mind that the office of this think tank is also the offices of an entity called the Srivastava Group, named after the family that appears to have founded and run this think tank. Founded by the late Mr. G.N. Srivastava, and now his son Ankit and his wife appear to be the ones who run this. At least 6 companies are registered on the same address of this office, and from their website, they claim to be amongst the fastest growing business houses in the country, with interests in natural resources, clean energy, airspace, consulting services, healthcare, print media and publishing. But all of this locked in just one day and shut down. We reached out to them. The response from the spokesperson of the Srivastava Group was simply no comment. We've also contacted Madhi Sharma and are yet to receive a response. We'll certainly keep updating our reporting as and when we get such a response. All right, joining us tonight on the show, we have with us Suhasini Haidar, National Editor and Diplomatic Affairs Editor. The Hindu is on the show. Sadanand Dhume, Resident Fellow, American Enterprise Institute, joining us from Bangalore. And in the Delhi studio, Desh Ratan Nigam, political analyst, lawyer, supports the RSS. Avni Bansal, advocate, Supreme Court, supports the Congress party. Suhasini, Heather, the Hindu and you particularly have been doing some fine reporting on this story as well. I'm sure you have a theory on what is really going on now with all this business of Madhi Sharma and whatnot. What do you think is really going on, and what are you hearing from the government and the foreign ministry about all of this?
Thanks very much for your kind comments, Srinivasan. I think that the government is after a brief period where the government really distanced itself completely from this delegation, is making the case that regardless of the bad optics, if you like, that this particular visit of MEPs has brought about, this should be seen as a positive sign because it is paving the way for possibly more visits to Jammu and Kashmir. And I think that is really what we are hearing from people across the board. And if I can return the compliment, you've done some, sort of fine spade work on where these organizations that have put together this visit have come from. But I think the question that remains to be answered, which the government has not yet made any comment on, is why it didn't just organize this visit on its own. The government of India has its own credibility to invite these people if this is what they wanted. Why allow a private individual of what looks like fairly unknown, unclear antecedents and an obscure think tank to speak on behalf of the Prime Minister of India? In any country, and particularly in India, we hold these processes very dear. We respect the idea that there will not be lobbyists involved and other people involved. When the Prime Minister of India wishes to meet somebody, as this lobby firm or whatever firm claims, then the Prime Minister of India will make that reach out, or the Prime Minister's office will make that reach out. Why they have outsourced it to anyone, regardless of their antecedents, I think remains the unanswered question.
If they have indeed outsourced it, I mean, that's the, that the smart money is on the fact that this is a proxy operation by, some part of the Indian state, right, Suhasini? But obviously, they're not owning it at all.
We've heard different comments from different officials over the last couple of days, Srinivasan, but I think the facts remain evident. We cannot prove what the relationship is, and the government has made no attempt to clarify whether it is in fact connected to these groups or whether it is not. All we have is these photo ops and these photographs that you're showing us of the Prime Minister standing with these people, of Vice President Naidu meeting them, of the National Security Advisor and the External Affairs Minister giving them lunch and dinner.
Right. Sadanand Dhume, this Suhasini makes a good point that, this idea of lobbying, I mean, this is something which is much more institutionalized in countries like America, for instance. But of course, in India, not quite so. That if India really wanted to go ahead and call foreign functionaries, visitors to come and sort of visit Kashmir, why go through this route? Why pick individuals and institutions that appear to be of a highly questionable nature? Somebody who's been censured by the Maldivian government for, in a sense, masquerading as a official delegation, an outfit, a think tank in Delhi, which has closed its office just a day after the media reported on it.
Oh, it's a great question. Vasu, I would call this, I think of this as foreign policy by WhatsApp. And if the goal here is to, impress people, someone in Bareilly, and to show that, look, the world, there are these guys in suits who came and met with the Prime Minister and then went on houseboats in Srinagar and then came back and said nice things about the government of India's policies, then you could call it a success. But if the goal is to, in fact, mold and influence international opinion, which appears to be what their goal is, then this is, it's a complete flop. It's a farce. And it's a farce precisely for the reasons that you and others have documented. You have these dodgy NGOs that nobody has heard of. If you do want to be running some kind of sophisticated information operation, then you really shouldn't have your fingerprints all over it so clumsily. That's the first point. The second point is, of course, the issue of propriety. Why on earth are these members of the European Parliament parading around Srinagar at a time when, frankly, members of India's own parliament aren't allowed to visit, right? I mean, can you imagine this happening in any other democracy? Can you imagine, for example, in the United States, them deciding that, well, senators and congressmen can't go to Utah, but let's take a delegation from Latin America there instead? I mean, it's preposterous on the face of it. The third issue, let me quickly touch upon,
Yes.
is the composition of the delegation, where again you have this sort of, clumsiness or shoddiness or hastiness, call it what you will, showing through. Now, it's perfectly fine, I think, to engage with all shades of opinion, including the far right. But when 22 out of 27 members belong to these far right, very anti-immigrant parties in many cases, and it shows that instead of, in fact, showcasing normalcy in India, you've ended up creating a sort of a wedge in a way, which actually could end up hurting India, because these are not in many ways mainstream political figures.
Right. Deshatha Nigam, I mean, supporter of the government you might be, but surely even you would have a problem with this, because this is a government that said they were going to precisely drain the swamp, to use the beloved phrase of our, the American president. No lobbyists, no brokers of dubious origins, but that's what has happened here. The fingerprints of exactly those sorts of entities are all over this business, and they're actually getting access to the Prime Minister.
See, I think we all are jumping the gun. Your investigation is still in the process, and everybody is speculating and converting into a theory, which is still a hypothesis. Let us be very clear on and everybody is giving an opinion on it, not a factual content.
No, everything we've reported is facts.
No,
there's nothing.
Yes,
there's no.
Let us be
just
very
to clarify, but because often this happens, that facts are muddied into opinion. In this particular instance, we only read out hard facts.
Let me answer. So whether this, I look at from the point of objective. Who's doing it and who's not doing it, to me, is immaterial.
Doesn't matter?
No, not at all.
It doesn't matter if it's
the 27 elected representatives of various countries have come here. They are MPs in their own right, and some of them are a part of the government in one or two countries, if I'm not wrong. Where the
fact
parties
that, hold on, you're saying that the fact that this is all being paid for, presumably, by a think tank which has locked its gates. This think tank has organized a bunch of people to come and be the Prime Minister.
I will not speculate.
They have locked their gates. When we sent our camera, you're saying you're okay with that.
No, whether they
this is the Prime Minister of the country.
See, whether they have locked it, not locked it, it's something to be yet investigated. And you said presumably funded by somebody, so it's a lot of presumptions are there from your own side. You rightly
No, I'm happy to be informed as to who's funded this. That's exactly the question you're asking.
So that investigation should go on. I'm not saying it should not. And the fact is, these 27 MPs went there. They have formed an opinion, and they'll take this opinion to their own countries. Their objective is very clear, and they've also realized, they've also made a statement, it's an internal matter. They've also talked about threat also. They've met some people, not entirely, because the situation is not absolutely normal. I agree to that extent. Yes, they met some people. They met the panchayat members,
you're saying that
the councillors also. And therefore, the
means don't matter, the ends matter.
See, means as of now, there are a lot of presumptions there. So the fact remains, as you say, you investigate. Nobody stops you from investigating. Let the truth come out. Yes, the Prime Minister's office is involved here, appears to be. Prime Minister has met. Chief Mr. Ajit Doval is involved here. So
no, they've met. But the point here, Avni, is that, and the Congress, I think, has tweeted about this or has put out a statement, we're trying to put that up on the screen, is that this is a person, an individual, Madhi Sharma, who, to be honest, till this moment, none of us had heard of. If Deshatha Nigam has heard of her, then wonderful, but I certainly hadn't, has sent out emails saying she's writing on the behalf of the Prime Minister of India. Now, that's very serious. And she's organizing access to a high security region like Kashmir. Surely, her credentials, who she represents, what is her background, matters.
So, Srinivasan, my first major worry, as this incident reveals, is this entire privatization, seeming privatization of the government.
Right.
I'll tell you exactly what is at stake here. What is at stake here is that we are saying that India's Prime Minister,
by the way, but yes,
irrespective of whichever political party it is, India's Prime Minister is ready to meet anybody and everybody, and that these meetings will be organized by an individual or an NGO about whom or which we have no organization, no information, nothing that's known to us, and the fact that the silence from the Prime Minister's office, I mean, the fair thing to do from the Prime Minister's office should have been to say how we were involved and how did we come about. I mean, what the NGO did, who this lady is to me less concerning than how did the Prime Minister agree to meet at the behalf of an individual's request. That's first point.
Okay,
A second quick point is the timing of it has to be kept in mind. Tomorrow is a date when the government's policy in Jammu and Kashmir is to be implemented, right? So why sort of, show to the world that we have, a group of foreigners coming and saying everything is a hunky-dory, but Indians, I think, will need more than just, foreign faces to fool themselves.
This is a point, Deshrata Nigam, that others in the panel have made as well, that it takes nothing for the government of India, especially, India's stature as it is in the world, to organize a group of 27 MPs to come down. Why have you outsourced it to some completely unheard of operators?
And Srinivasan, just 30 seconds.
Let me respond to that.
Just one quick question. Why is this not an anti-national activity? We have been calling people anti-national left, right and centre. Now an individual goes out, says that she's going to arrange a meeting with the Prime Minister. Why is she not being declared anti-national by the entire RSS and the BJP gang?
See, let us be very clear. You presume it has been outsourced.
You presume
Did the Prime Minister not meet these individuals? Did the Prime Minister not meet these individuals? I mean, we have the visual clips in front of us.
I think
that the Prime Minister
hold on. This is
question
beyond.
was to me.
This is beyond the scope of presumption now.
See, let me tell you.
The entire evidence.
Even in the past,
yeah,
the NGOs have organized meetings and they have met prime ministers. So various elected people in the private visits have come and met. So it's nothing new. Let us be very clear.
Let the Prime Minister's office say that we authorize.
Okay,
why are they silent? Let them say we authorize this organization.
I don't debate like that. I don't debate like that.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So you're saying, Deshrata Nigam, it is at the end of the day, something which does happen. Suhasini, how do you respond to that? That, I mean, because you also covered diplomacy for a long time, and it isn't unheard of for governments to try to use proxies to bring people to influence opinion. But have you ever seen anything unfold in this manner?
Honestly speaking, Srinivasan, the only places one has seen them is in more controlled countries like Pakistan, which does invite these MEPs in to take them to places that other Pakistanis don't have access to, like Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. We've seen it in China, where delegations are often taken to Tibet and Xinjiang. I think there was an American delegation there a few days ago, which otherwise are off limit.
Right.
We see Central Asian authoritarian regimes carry out these kind of very, very controlled sightseeing tours. Also, I don't think India wants to be seen amongst those. The second part is that we have a very competent Ministry of External Affairs and ambassadors and embassies in every country. So why should we need to outsource to a private entity is a second question. And the third question would be very simply, you have a group and that is essentially foreigners, not Indians, getting this access when Indian members of parliament have had to go to the Supreme Court, and even the few that got permission to go to Srinagar had to sign documents saying that they will not make any political statements, they will not say anything. You have a situation here where the MEPs go to Srinagar and make statements about India's internal affairs. The MEP actually said on camera that India should allow its opposition to travel to Jammu and Kashmir. We are giving up very, very dearly held tenets of Indian foreign policy and sovereignty by trying to do what is looking more and more like a whitewash and an image building exercise and done through dubious means.
Right. I mean, I think that, Sadanand, is also something which I had to say was of concern to me as well, that our, as Suhasini said, our very competent foreign ministry and in fact foreign minister completely appears to have been bypassed in all this, and one wonders really whether they had a chance to filter not just the process through which these people came, but who came, and that you have a bunch of these MPs, some of them who represent parties with extreme views, shaking hands with the Prime Minister.
No, absolutely, and these are complex issues, right? Each country has its own internal dynamics. It has its own domestic politics. And the Indian ambassador there and the embassy people who are professionals are best positioned, to gauge this. I don't think that it should be done in a slapdash way. if you do want to copy, first of all, I don't think it's wise to sort of copy the Pakistanis and the Chinese and so on, and sort of try and take a leaf out of the authoritarian playbook. But if you are trying to take a leaf out of the authoritarian playbook, for heaven's sake, don't do it so clumsily.
Right. Deshadan Nigam, you wanted to come in. I'll come to you, Amni. Deshadan wanted to interject. Sure. Yes.
See, the fact remains that there is no bar constitutionally or legally of such kind of a private visit. Maybe on this scale it has
but
been done.
But we're not on the legality at all.
No, legality, constitutionality have to be gone into before
but
we attack.
That's not the issue here.
No, issue is, you may not make that issue. It is an issue for me.
But what about the issue? What about the issue that you have given people access? You've given essentially a group of politicians, foreign politicians, access to Kashmir. You said this is always an internal matter. There's no question of internationalizing it. In one stroke, you internationalized it. You brought them there.
No.
They've made statements on the political situation in Kashmir.
Let us see. This Kashmir has been discussed in UNGA. It has been discussed in UNSC. It is being discussed internationally.
So you're saying it's already
been
been internationalized?
It's so good to hear this change of stand. It's very good to hear.
I thought we were against it being internationalized.
Not internationalized, but being discussed.
But then
you can't stop.
What is internationalization then?
See, let me tell you, just because these 27 people are visiting does not make it an international issue. It remains a bilateral issue, which has also been endorsed.
But then why are they visiting?
How does it remain a bilateral issue if there are 27
If it's an internal matter, why do we need a certificate from European MPs?
It is a part of your international diplomacy to create an opinion internationally, because there are certain
on a domestic issue.
See, whatever, because the fact remains, there is other set of people who are trying to portray a very different picture about India and Kashmir.
But I thought we didn't care about the other people. The last question before I come to her, on the response on the double standards, that Indian politicians can't enter and foreign are entering.
Let me answer that. When some people were stopped from going to Kashmir, we saw what kind of statement Ghulam Nabi Azad made in the Rajya Sabha, very provocative. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary made provocative statements, went to the extent of saying, you know what, and then there was, prior to 370, there were statements of Mehbooba Mufti, Barood mein aag lag jayegi, shareer jal jayega. So these were, the government
was very... that justifies blocking our own politicians from going and allowing foreign politicians to go in. Look at the precedent you're justifying here.
Yes. Please hold on.
You're fully justifying this.
And exactly the same.
Extraordinary.
No, not extraordinary, absolutely normal.
Because I'm saying
let me complete.
Srinivasan,
you didn't allow me to complete my sentence.
Yes.
The exact contentions were placed before Supreme Court. Supreme Court also in its wisdom thought these are not the time where you should go out there and try to provocate people.
Okay.
So therefore, they gave real restrictions also. They took undertaking from them.
Right.
They considered the government's contention, and then they were able to pass that kind of an order.
I'm surprised.
First, it is very clear how Mr. Modi is all about perception management. There is very little authenticity there. So anybody who gives an opinion or a voice that matches with you, call them. The moment Mr. Chris Davies say that, no, I want to meet the ordinary people, the invitation is withdrawn. So you just want voices supporting you. That is very clear. That's very clear. It's written on the wall. The second point, which I am most intrigued by in this entire unfolding of events, is the hypocrisy, the sheer hypocrisy, Srinivasan, of the BJP people. Because we haven't forgotten just a little while back when a delegation of the Indian Overseas Congress went and met a few foreigners. It was suddenly all about national security. Kashmir is an internal matter. And the Congress came up, and that time we were not shooting the gun, of course. When the Congress next day came up and said that, we never sort of officially gave them,
and now you're saying
and now we are saying here is Indian Prime Minister meeting all these people when he's been, when all these people have been invited at the behest of an individual. And we're still saying that the Prime Minister has no role to play.
Sadanand, yes, you wanted to come in.
Point.
Very quickly, because we're running out of time.
One thing that has not really been commented upon very much is that, these are not even, forget their far-right credentials, these are not even significant politicians. They are not members of their national legislatures. These are MEPs. They don't really have any legislative power. These are not members of parliament from Germany and members of parliament from France.
Right.
These are MEPs.
Okay.
So it's actually really quite odd for this sort of, low-level and also rather extreme delegation to get the kind of access they got.
And it actually makes us a bigger laughing stock in the European Union than supporting our cause.
We're out of time. But this is not the end that we're likely to hear or see of this story. Thank you all so much for watching and for joining us on Reality Check. It's been fascinating, but we have to let it go. Good night.